Welcome to another edition of Interruptions. I'm your host, Otis Smith. We have a woman of God here on the show today to share her story with us. She's an author, she's an actress, she's a radio personality, she's done voiceover. She has the book out, The Grace to Walk Away. I'm talking no other than Janette. Is it Auguar?
It's
Uh,
Auguar,
Auguar,
Janette
Auguar.
Auguar, Otis.
That's why
Yes,
I paused when I was saying it because I don't like to get people name wrong, and I don't want to just roll over it like yeah, I said it right. So I
I
appreciate
appreciate
I appreciate you coming on the show and blessing us with your presence. We do not take it lightly. You could be doing anything else, so I want to make sure that you know that we thank you for it, and we acknowledge that you blessed us with your presence. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you. And I appreciate the privilege to be here today.
Thank you, thank you. Um, my first question for you, and I'm gonna jump right in it. But my first question for you today is, talk to me about um, the pain that you've been through and how you dealt with it and healed from some of your pain.
Okay, that's a really big question. I've been through a lot, as most people have been in relationships, in ministry, in family,
Hmm.
a little of it all from poor decisions to just yeah bad choices. I have been through a lot, and how I navigated it through it was different for every situation,
Okay.
just depending upon what that situation was. The thing that prompted me to write the book, Otis, was the relationship challenge that I had when I married a professional football player, and not 24 48 hours later he thought he had made a mistake and wanted out of it, and I found myself in a seriously brokenhearted situation and didn't know that a broken heart is a real thing. It's a real pain. And so, in order to navigate that and to get some healing from
Hmm.
that, to have
Hmm.
some cleansing, if you will,
Sure.
some therapy, I found it important to write it. I was writing the story as I went through it. And I'm glad I did. It was many years ago, but I was able to do it when it was fresh in my mind and when I was really in touch with my emotions, with my feelings at the time, in addition to in
Okay.
touch with the actual events that transpired. So, writing about it was a way to help me get over that. The way to help me get over some other things I've been through is strictly God intervening and snatching pain out of my chest. I
He'll
mean,
do
a
it.
real healing. You hear me? I know him as a healer, as a deliverer. I know him in many facets. And so I have to give him credit and all the glory for everything that he's brought me through, everything that he's graced me to
Right.
walk away from. And as I've shared previously, I think
Hmm.
it's so important that we do have the grace to walk away from things that are painful, things that do not serve us well, because oftentimes people end up in prison, end up dead, end up
Hmm.
in mental institutions because they don't have the grace to walk away from situations that are crushing in a moment. So I'm grateful that God gave me the grace to walk away from so much and to instill and inspire others to do the same. Because as they walk away from those times that were not beneficial, they'll
Hmm.
find themselves walking into purpose and destiny and not being stuck there.
I love that. And what's so funny is I'm getting ready. I'm putting something together that I'm going to release probably around Father's Day. And I told Pam, I said, well, I want to interview her first, and then if she has time, I want to bring her back, because it's going to be just people sharing briefly their testimony, and then
Yes,
just kind of how they overcame what they went through, so people can understand, no matter what they go through, no matter how far they think they sunk depths that they've gone through, that they can come back from it. And so,
yes.
the word says that, we overcame by the blood of the lamb and the word of their testimony. And so
Otis,
we got to
Otis,
have that testimony.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You're talking about my show right now. I do a show called The Spiritual Connection, and that is exactly what I do. I interview believers from different walks of life, and they share their testimonies. And it's an amazing, amazing thing, because you're right. The word says we do overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimonies. And so for others to have that hope of what God is able to do, to hear somebody else's testimony,
Correct.
lets them know that they can make it through it. So I'm all for that. I mean, that is what inspired me to even do the show, is having so many of my own and knowing God's capability to bring us through that.
Well, let me know if you free May the 16th.
Girl, let me mark that on my calendar, Otis.
And watch this. Same time. That time well, for your time, 7 my time.
Okay.
I'm not going to even tell you who already have confirmed. I'm not going to tell you what celebrity already have confirmed. I think your testimony would be awesome for it.
I would be honored. I would be absolutely honored.
I love your title, the grace to walk away. It's something I've been saying for years, and not how you poetically put it for the title of your book, but I always say, I always tell, because I have 2 daughters, right? I have three kids. I have a son, I have 2 daughters. And I always say you can do bad by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to have the courage to do bad by yourself. And a lot of times people say that, but they don't mean that. And so they won't walk away for whatever relationship it is. It could be a marriage. It could be far as boyfriend, girlfriend. It could be just 2 friends that maybe you just outgrown each other, or you finding out this is really not your friend. Mm-hmm. And you keep holding on to what so God can't bring in the people that really need to be in your life, because you won't let the people that are not supposed to be in your life go. So
come on now.
That's why I love the title of the book, the grace, to have that grace to just walk away from it, to understand that. And you said something that I'm gonna have to jump around with my question, because like I said, it goes where you take it.
All right.
Do you hold on, let me find it, because it's later down. No, here it is. Do you think men, or can you talk about the important, where men, we don't understand the damage that we do in a relationship when we damage that woman, whatever, that capacity? Can you talk about, because sometimes we'll say, like you stated, your ex-husband was like, you get married, it's a beautiful time, everything, especially, how we do at the wedding and the wedding reception, everybody high five, girl, you married now, everything is beautiful.
Yeah.
And then somebody comes back 24, 48 hours, like, you know what? I shouldn't have got married, and I shouldn't have got married to you, because sometimes we think as men, like, look, I got to do this. It's a mistake. Okay. And it could be a mistake. But can you talk about, from a woman's perspective, how we don't understand as men the damage that we can cause and do?
I think that's so good. That's such a great question. And start by saying it is absolutely necessary that before we make major decisions like that, major life-changing, lifelong decisions like that, that we really need to take some time, be prayerful about it, and make certain that this is what I'm supposed to be doing at this juncture in my life, and this is the person I'm supposed to be doing it with.
Right.
I've heard it said, why am I rushing to get into something that I intend to be in for a whole lifetime? It's like, take your time, take your time. You're going to be there for a whole lifetime, take your time. And so I think that's a wonderful thing to do. In addition to that, I believe it's important to examine an individual that you plan to be with in every season of their life. I'm talking about spring, winter, summer, fall.
Right.
How are you when things are peachy keen and life is great and we've got what we need? How are you in the winter when the storm comes and things
Mhm.
get tough? Who are you then? And so I think before we make commitments like that to somebody, I need to know you in every season of your life, because
Yeah.
your winter might disrupt my world and I can't handle it, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So then to get straight to your question is, what do men do to women when they make rash decisions or not value the relationship that they have garnered? And it is very disruptive. And I believe we need to be cognizant of what we are doing to another person. It's like, that's a
Sure.
human, that's a life, that's somebody's daughter, that's
Right.
somebody's son, that is somebody who somebody loves. How am I treating them? And
Mhm.
is it okay with the person who really cares about them, that I treat them the way I'm treating them?
Right.
So um, it's important, and I believe as we do those first two things that I mentioned, it will
Mhm.
be less of the heartbreak, of the
Okay.
heartache. And then again, it's not what you do. Oftentimes, it's how you do it.
That's
How am
that's
I
true.
going to how am I going to break it, that I've made this mistake, that this relationship really shouldn't be? How am I going to break that to her? Am I going to be brass and ugly about it? Or
Right.
I'm going to be sensitive and compassionate with the understanding that this individual has feelings and it matters how
Yes.
I treat them. So I think that's something that men can do, is like be cognizant of the fact that I'm dealing with an individual, because I'm going to tell you, the cemeteries are full, the prison cells are full, the mental institutions are full,
Yeah.
because we don't know how to handle people, because we don't know how to treat them like they have feelings. And if they have some serious feelings and they're not
Right.
rooted and grounded in Christ, or have some foundation that's going to prevent them from
Mhm.
not having the grace to walk away, but having the unction to go off, then we have created something catastrophic. So I think it's just so important, just as humans, period,
Sure.
that we treat each other with some love and kindness and respect and compassion, knowing that that's a real human being. And then put the shoe on the other foot. How would I want someone to treat me? It's like do
We
unto
lose
others,
our
right?
mind. Listen. I tell my wife this all the time. I say, listen, brothers, we try to come out tough and all that, but man, when a man heart is broke, when he shook up, boy, I remember in high school. I ain't gonna call my cousin's name. I ain't gonna call him out, but he remember, and he broke up with his girlfriend in high school. And I remember I think it was Climax, the song by Climax, "I Miss You." He played that, but he played it about 30 times. I'm like, bro, you like, come on, bro, come on, let's go do
Snap
something
out of it.
else.
Yeah.
Nah, man, y'all go ahead, man. Yeah, I'm like, bro, what?
Yeah.
And the reason I asked that question is because sometimes men, we have said like, I tried to be upfront with her, I tried to this, that, and the other, but she's just crazy. And it's like someone, my big brother in Christ told me this a long time ago. He said, do not, if you don't plan to deal with this woman, right? Like just really be in a relationship with this woman, then do not allow her time and space.
Yes.
Because when you give her time and space, that's what she's valuing. And so I had to learn that with my wife, because when my wife had been married before, and so when we got married, I'm new to everything. I'm a fatherhood, married. I don't have a concept at all.
Okay.
And I remember I said, hey babe, you want something from McDonald's? She was like, no. I said, okay. I left it at that. Now my thing was, I'm gonna eat McDonald's. So I got the McDonald's and went home.
Right.
She looking at me like, you you didn't bring us nothing to eat. I said, well, I asked you, did you want McDonald's? And you said no. Not understanding that, no, that was your key to ask, well, what do you
What?
want to eat? Where do you, not that you just get McDonald's and then go home and ain't nobody else in the family eat. And so I had to learn those different, dynamics, even though using something small as that. I remember one time a certain lady liked me, And
Mhm.
this is before I met my wife, and she was going to buy me a suit. And my big brother in Christ said, look, uh, are you planning on being with her? I said, well, I'm just getting to know her. We just, we kicking it or whatever. He said, listen, if you not gonna be with her, do not allow her to buy that suit. I was like, why?
Mhm.
He said, because you playing a dangerous game. You playing with her emotions.
Mhm.
She's not saying it like you saying it. If she's gonna take her money and spend it on you, you have to understand she's taking this somewhere else different. And I did
Yes.
not allow her to buy that. So just giving you, that was the premises of me asking that question, because sometimes, like you said, men or women, either side, like you said, we don't understand the damage that we're doing, because there are signs there that this person is investing a lot in the relationship emotionally already, and you just going on cavalier. And then when he or she breaks it to someone like, I don't want to be with you, or it's not that serious with me, and now you're trying to figure out why all hell breaking loose.
Right, right. So Otis, here's what I have to say about that. First of all,
Sure.
and that was very, very good advice that your spiritual brother gave you, is that you wouldn't let her buy you that straight jacket.
Right.
That still
Okay.
was a straight jacket. But anyway, they say a bracelet is a handcuff or something. But anyway, but the other thing that you were talking about though is,
Hmm.
you know, her expecting you to go on further with the next question. Well, what would you like?
Hmm.
That's where we have, and I've heard uh, my spiritual brother, Tim Ross at Embassy City, put it like this, is that we
Hmm.
have unspoken expectations. If I
Yes.
have an expectation of you, I need to speak that. I need to say that. But you can't be expected to read someone's mind. I
Right.
asked you a question, you answered it, that was that. And it's not fair for us to expect for you to know what's on my mind. So we have to overcome that,
Sure.
unspoken expectation. Hey, you didn't say nothing. You just didn't say anything. But even in that, in learning one another, it's
Right.
important to communicate it in a
Correct.
way that it's understood. And hey, we've overcome that, and no, that won't happen anymore. Like, hey, honey, that was an unspoken expectation. Next time, just let me know. I wasn't even thinking that far.
Me and
I
the
was at
kids.
McDonald's.
Listen, me and the kids asked about 50 questions now. Me and the kids, like, so, because me and the girls, like, we can eat, we can eat a lot of different types of food. My wife is a little bit more simple in her taste buds and what she likes to eat. So
Mhm.
we don't just, now it's like, we look at her like, okay, what you want to eat? And she was like, I don't know what y'all gonna eat. We're like, no, 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 no. We can eat almost anything. You can't. You will not. So where do you want to go?
Right, right. Let's
We,
squash this.
me and the
Let's make
girls don't want that kind of problem. We don't want that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
problem. So that's why we know how to ask that question.
Well, it's wonderful that you've learned from that experience. And that's the key to any relationship is let me learn from the experiences that we go through. They don't have to be
Correct.
destructive to the relationship, but if we can keep learning and growing and gelling, then that would be amazing. I sound like the relationship guru, and maybe because I've had enough of them.
Well, I think, like you said, you as the old adage, you live and you learn, and so
Yes,
I think we all have knowledge and wisdom if we just take the time to share it. Somebody
yes,
always says, you know what you know,
yes,
you know,
exactly right. That's
but
exactly right.
other people won't know that you know something unless you're willing to share what you know. You
I
know,
agree. I
so
agree wholeheartedly.
talk to me about oh, that was that question. So no, I didn't jump around. Look, it was question number two. So I thought,
Okay, okay. We
but
flowing without interruption.
see, I told you, get interrupted. How did you still create a situation for yourself of acting, radio, all these different situations, and still in the process, when you're dealing with being healed from any pain or whatever? Because people don't realize, just because you're in pain don't mean the world stops. You would like
Correct.
it to, but the world
Yes.
keeps going on. So how did you maneuver and still create those different avenues for yourself in the midst of going through a healing process?
I found it to be a great outlet It was the thing that grounded me. It was my go-to. Maybe that was my other relationship, is to be able to have something else that I could hold on to, that I love, that I enjoyed doing, to take my mind off of it. Of course, my journey's been lengthy in the book, and it spans over several years. And I was in a different time and space at different times.
Sure.
But I used to go into the local cable station in the LA area, Westminster, Inglewood, LA, several of the
Okay.
cable stations, and do my cable television show, A Spiritual Connection, at that time. So every opportunity that I found to use my gift, because while I worked in corporate America, I still wanted to be able to do what I love doing, and that
Okay.
is radio or television or acting. So every opportunity that came along, I took advantage of that. And of course, there were times when they certainly took me away from that headspace of what I thought I was missing. In fact, I found some relationships, Otis, to be a distraction
Okay.
to my journey,
Sure.
and to really pull me off course from what I love doing, because it's time. Any relationship takes time.
Yep.
And unless that person is vested in what it is you have a passion to do and a heart to do, and they're buying into it and supporting it, unless they're doing that, then you're being pulled off course. And that's something else that we want to be mindful of. It's like either you're for me or you're against me.
Right.
Either you are supporting my journey or you're taking away from it. So I've learned the hard way as well, because there were times when I was in and out of what I love to do, simply because I allowed someone to pull me out of it. So if I can share that message to someone who is on a journey, is be cognizant of the person you are journeying with.
Right.
Are they supportive of the direction in which you're going? And if not, then that may be a good sign, a good indication that this person is not really for me. Because if we find ourselves on this journey and we're not getting where we want to go, then the relationship is going to be frustrating. It's going to be frustrating because I'm not being fulfilled and gratified in the things that I love doing. So all of these little things are things to kind of look out for as we are involved with relationships, as we seek relationships. Don't turn a blind eye to what God is really showing us all along, because He would
Correct.
not have us ignorant. He wouldn't
Correct.
have us making mistakes. But sometimes we are so adamant about what we want it. And then we suffer the consequences because we did not put the brakes on to stop and listen to whether this is what He wanted for us. So while I was so heartbroken, Otis, even about this relationship that ended 24, 48 hours, it took 20 years for God to show me why He would not allow it to be. I mean, it took 3 years for me to get over the broken heart. And it took 20 something years for the Lord to say, this is why I would not have that to be. And when you read the book, The Grace to Walk Away, you will find out why
You're
God
gonna have to send
spared
it.
me.
You're gonna have to send it to me, and you're gonna have to sign it. You
I'll be
got to
glad to do
give
that.
it. Yes, yes. I don't want no regular copy everybody else get. That's not. I'm bougie now. I have to have stuff. That's
I'm going to give you what you want, okay? I am going to give you a
well,
signed, personalized
I
copy, Otis.
appreciate it. But you know
Okay,
what's
without.
interesting? What you said regarding that is, I remember before I met my wife. Here's a funny part. 2 years before I met my wife, I was in a relationship with a lady and thought this is who I was going to marry. All right. And what's funny about that, before I even asked her to marry me, I remember a church member told me one time, and wasn't talking about anybody specifically, but she told me, she said that you're not gonna marry who you think you're gonna marry. Yeah, and
Mhm,
what she was talking about, because it was the ideal I had in my head, right? And so I get engaged, was not engaged long, got broken off. Now, my wife knew my next door neighbor, the apartment complex. She knew my next door neighbor, and she knew the lady that lived under me.
mhm,
Never seen my wife, never saw her. She visited frequently, never saw her. When the day, and it just happened to be the day that I saw her, she was going to see my next door neighbor, and he wouldn't come to the door. and she was there to visit him and his wife. And I said, well, he's not going to come to the door. I said, let me knock on the door. So I did my little special knock where he would know it's me. And so he was like, oh, hey, Poncetta, that's my wife's name. Hey, Poncetta, he came to the, so I didn't think about it. Just went back in my apartment, looked at my best friend, Keith, at the time and said, hold up. I just saw if she was fine. Hold on. I'll be right back. And asked her out. Been married 23 years.
Wow.
Just, and, and the prophecy, and I call it a prophecy, but what the person spoke to me was true, was that I didn't marry who my wife would not have been at the time, who she was when I met her, would not be a person I thought I would have married. Right? So, to your point is that, because trust me, I was doing the same thing. Like, God, I thought this was the one. We would have been a good team. Here I am over here. She does this, all this other kind of stuff. And when it didn't happen, I was just, and then check this out. And then when I met my wife, right? The same year I met my wife, the same year my father had a stroke. Then I buried my father. My father had a stroke in July, and then I buried him. Me and my mother buried him in October. And then 2 weeks later, I find out I'm gonna be a father.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, like you said, have the grace to walk away and start to change and understand God is starting to change the trajectory of your life. And like you said, a lot of people have a hard time doing that because you know how we are, like, ooh, that must be the devil right there. That especially if we could perceive it to be negative. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm sure, Janet, people came to y'all like, girl, that wasn't nothing but the devil right there. See that he come to steal, kill, and destroy. And they start giving all these scriptures. And and when we're hurting, we were like, yeah, I know. And God was like, not really. You didn't realize you was on the wrong road.
Right.
So once again, I'm gonna play on words. I had to come in and interrupt your life.
Well, that's exactly what's happened in more times than one.
You're on the wrong road. I got to interrupt you like I did Paul. Remember, Paul thought he was headed the right way. And he said, you know what? You're on the wrong road.
Wrong road to Damascus. You're on the wrong road.
I'm finna interrupt you right now so I can put you on the right.
Yes. And we are so grateful. I mean, maybe not at the time because it's painful. That turn oftentimes can be very sharp. You're right. And we don't appreciate it at the time. But when he reveals it, if he cares to reveal why he took you off that road, then you have to look back and just say, thank you, Lord. Just thank you. Thank you for sparing me. Thank you for sparing me. And I can't wait until you read it so you can see what I'm talking about.
Oh, trust me. Then I'm going to have you back on again. I probably had you on 3 times. I can see that now. Talk to me about what you have learned about yourself through your life journey.
I have learned that I can be a little trusting. I can be too trusting, a little gullible and naive, a little hasty. Maybe I'm a bit more cautious than I used to be. But I've learned a lot of things by what I have suffered. And I believe it is better to have foresight, to have vision, to not be hasty, and not have to suffer the things that I've suffered, not have to maybe what seems to be waste, although he redeems the time and uses it all. But I could be, I wouldn't have to take 40 years to get to the promised land. Okay.
I get it.
If I listened a little better, a little tentatively, if I didn't make so many rash decisions, and
that's all of us.
Allow the Lord to just, lead me and guide me and order my steps instead of me taking steps in hopes that it's the right one. So that's been the greatest lesson for me is just allowing him to order my steps and not to think I know the way.
You know what I found out?
What?
In my little 50 years of living. I found out we really, the thing about having faith in God, what we have faith in is that he'll do it. That's what we have faith in. What we do not have faith in is the process. So when that's why, Paul said, for we know in part, we prophesy in part. Because God is like, because we looking at God like, you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
Look, let me, and God like, no, you know what you do.
Right.
And we have this back and forth thing that it's God talking to us, but we're rejecting it because it's not the thing we want to hear. It's not it's like, well, God, what you take me through that for? And sometimes God has said, well, I had already given you the answer. You wasn't listening.
Right.
So, because God said, I'm always talking, but are you always listening? And now you got to go through this, because guess what? It's the only way I can get your attention. I had already gave you the answer. And then we start going through this, why me, and all this other kind of stuff.
We bring it on ourselves, don't we? We bring it on ourselves by not listening, and by not allowing our steps to be ordered, by wanting what we want instead of what he wants for us, or finding out if he wants a particular individual for us or not. So yeah, we get ourselves out there and in trouble.
Yeah, we funny.
Listen, we are. We got these treasures, right? But they're in this right here, in these earthen vessels, in this flesh that is a mess, right? This flesh is a mess over there.
Because if we be honest, we ain't trying to acknowledge him in all our ways. We ain't trying. We're like, look, I mean, when he say all, he mean all. So then when it comes to business, we thinking like, oh, well, they ain't got nothing to do with God. So we go over here, and he said, I say it in all your way. And we get caught up because we're thinking everything is supposed to be related to quote unquote scripture. And he's telling us, no, fool, the scripture is for you, so you order your life. That's what you're reversing it. You putting the scripture over here and your life over here, and then you're calling me, when you then you're talking to me when you want to talk.
When you need to talk, mostly.
Or when you need you got it.
When you don't know which way to go, when you find yourself backed up in a corner. I like that. Yes.
Then we get mad. Look. Then we get mad when he's taking too long. Like, look. We start quoting Smoking Norfolk. Look, no, I need you now. Like,
listen. You took that thought out of my head, because I was thinking, be anxious for nothing, and that's our problem. Is we get anxious. We want stuff to happen yesterday. And he said, in everything by prayer and supplication, make your request, let your request be made known. So we can't be anxious, we can't be hasty. We just got to let God, and know that we were created for a purpose, that he knows the way we take, that his thoughts of us are good and not evil, and that, if we just stay on course, his yoke will be easy and his burdens will light. But we pick up these bags. We pick up these bags along the way that are heavy and that weigh us down. And then we have to throw them off and do what? Have the grace to walk away.
Grace to walk away. Let me ask you this. Also, what did you learn about God through your journey?
I learned that he was and is there for me when nobody else is. When nobody else is. There are some miraculous things, and I've heard it often said that we shouldn't live, if we live by principles, we wouldn't have to live by miracles. But I wasn't living by principles in a number of instances, and I needed the miraculous intervention of God. And there are several places in my book where God showed up miraculously for me. I mean, he showed up for me when the church didn't, okay? When an edifice is a building, or the people who you would expect to be there for you when they weren't there for me, God
Mm-hmm.
was always there for me. He's always been there for me. He's been there for my children. As a single parent, he has provided us with our needs without compromise.
Mm.
And oftentimes, as single parents, we don't think it's possible. We think we need a sugar daddy. We think we need
Right.
somebody to support us, somebody
Mm-hmm.
to do something for us. So we
Mm-hmm.
compromise our values, and then we leave this carnage for our children to even pick up, and it carries on for generations. Well,
Wow.
I would tell my children, if I didn't have it, if
Mm-hmm.
God didn't provide it, we weren't going to get it. We weren't going to have it. If somebody wanted to give me something, Otis, I wanted to know if there were any strings attached to it, because I didn't want to be a puppet according to what someone had given me. So that is what has transpired. God has been there for me. Thick and thin. I'm talking about automobile accidents. I'm talking
Ooh.
about God has been there for me through uh, my marriage to uh, I don't want to ruin the whole book for you,
You
Otis.
ain't
I
got to
don't.
run. You ain't gonna run the
Listen,
whole book. You ain't gonna run the whole book.
listen. God sent a federal drug enforcement agent to my house, and he said, "We are your guardian angels." This is when
Mm.
the church closed the door. Then a federal DEA agent knocked on my door and said, "We're your guardian angels." I mean, I, at that moment, there
Mm-hmm.
were so many chains and shackles released from me. And I knew that was God. You know, that wasn't a police officer. That wasn't a federal drug enforcement agent. That was God who said, I have come to rescue you from this situation that you've gotten yourself into. Okay. So there are just a number of circumstances in which God has shown up for me. God has given me dreams prior to something happening so that when it happened, it didn't jilt me as it would have. So I'm just
Wow.
grateful. I'm just grateful to him. When I found I didn't have a dad growing up, my dad uh, and mom were divorced very early on. I
Sure.
don't know if I was two or three, or and my childhood was pretty rickety, where I was passed around to a lot of relatives, and I didn't have a solid foundation. I think hence maybe my reason for so many poor decisions and
Mm-hmm.
learning things the hard way is
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't have that nurturing growing up. But when I found out that I
Mm-hmm.
had a daddy, when I found out that God
Yeah.
was my father, you could not tell me nothing, okay? I probably got a little too cocky because it was like my daddy said, you know, I was really adamant about God and what he said in his concerning me. Um, so yeah, he's
He
been there
doesn't.
for
He
me.
doesn't. And he doesn't lie.
He does not lie, okay?
He don't lie. He don't lie. He don't lie. Matter of fact,
Not
words say he's not a man that he
he is
should lie. So,
he is not
and
he is not.
that is the most awesome thing, that God knew you, like he said, before he even formed you,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
a pretty deep concept. I knew you even before I formed you. Like,
Okay.
what? You're like, what? So he knew within the situations and circumstances that you would be born in.
Hmm.
Just like Job, it's sometimes it's a I found out in my life, sometimes it's just he's just bragging on you. He said, I'm gonna
Yes,
put this weight on it because she told him she gonna deal with it. She gonna matter of fact, I'm gonna put the weight on it because I know when the weight hits her, she's gonna come talk to me. So
yes,
so I'm gonna bring her near me. She's gonna get what she needs from me, and she's gonna get other things that she needs to learn. And so when we start looking back over our lives, right, and see
yes.
what happened and how he, brought us out, right? You can say, oh man, grandmama them used to say it back in the day, keep living, just keep on living.
Just keep living.
Just keep
Yes,
living, because they're trying to let us know that you're not going to figure this thing out when you 21, 22, 23. I know you think you know. I know you think you know. I know, but you
yes,
don't know.
yes,
And I remember being at family reunions and uncles and people just laughing at me. And now I look back where I said, okay, now I see why they were laughing at me, because the stuff
yes,
I was
yes.
saying was so stupid. They were
And
smart enough to say, I'm not gonna argue with this fool. I'm gonna let him get 20 years down the road. He gonna see.
Just keep living, just keep living. And you know, the wonderful thing too, Otis, is that God entrusted us with the pain. He entrusted us with the things that we have gone through, knowing that when we make it through it, He's going to get the glory for bringing us through it. So I'm honored to have been through everything that I've been through, you know, thick and thin, no shame in my game, have messed up, been toe up from the flow up, but God, you know, but God has seen me through it all. And I'm grateful to Him for that and for entrusting me with every experience I've been through.
I'm gonna tell you why people like yourself are needed. And let me be candid. When I hear your story, when I hear the actor Ernest Thomas' story, uh, overcoming drug addiction, when I hear Paul Anthony from Full Force beating cancer, when I hear the comedian Shanita Morris, aka Chocolate, being brought through, the rapper the DOC being brought through, and then I look at my life, right?
Yes, yes.
And let me show you what God showed me, and this is why people like yourself is needed. Is God told me, He said, you just been inconvenienced in your life.
Mm,
You haven't been
mm,
through anything tragic. You just been inconvenienced.
mm, mm.
I'm like, and I'm looking at God. Now, who you talking to? And so then God, you ever notice when God wants to establish something, He'll ask you a question. Like he
Mhm,
don't
mhm.
know, like he don't know the answer,
No,
but
right, right,
but
right,
he
right,
wants
right.
you to. So he asked me, he said, have you ever been raped?
Mm.
Now I'm like, nah, I ain't been raped. Now, have you been
Yeah.
falsely accused of a crime and been put in jail for umpteen years? I'm like, no, I ain't been there. Have you ever been on drugs? It's like, no. He said to me, he said, you've lost people who've died. And yes, that hurt, but you ain't the only one that
Right.
have lost people. That's part of life. He said, you just been inconvenienced. He said,
Yes.
the problem is you magnified the situation instead of
Mm,
magnifying me. So the
mm.
situation became bigger than you could quote unquote handle because you didn't magnify me. So when I hear the testimonies of others, I can look back at my life and I can say, wow, I misread
Yeah.
it. Because
Yeah.
I made situations that, yes, they're hurtful, but it went all that, you just, so you need some, my old Pastor James E. Hightower used to say, if you want to know how blessed you are, just walk down the hallways of the hospital and you'll find out just how blessed you are. So when I
Yeah.
get to do these interviews and I get to talk to you and others and they're sharing their stories, one is therapeutic for me,
Yes.
just like
Yes.
you're writing the book. See, I know what I want to say. I have to say it. I can't put it down on paper. I just have to actually say it.
Yes.
And I appreciate people like yourself that really have walked through some, storms and come up on the other side and are not ashamed to tell people the storm that you've been through and what
Yes.
God has done for you in the storm. So other people who have been through some traumatic stuff, right, can see they
Hmm.
can come through. And then some people who, like myself, who just been inconvenienced, and you're trying to make that inconvenience seem so tragic.
Mm,
So it
mm,
is a truly blessing. Uh, through your life's journey, where did you find your inspiration?
mm. Through my life's journey, I have found my inspiration from my children.
Okay.
They have inspired me
Hmm.
to want to do the best I can for them, to want to see them not have to go through what I went through. My children have fortified me, have given me stability that I probably would not have had I not had children. I don't know where I would be if I didn't have a responsibility
Hmm.
that I needed to hone in on, close out the world, focus on my kids, focus on them being happy, healthy, provided for,
Gotcha.
at all costs. So I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for them. Hey, and I'm glad you mentioned my friend Ernest, Thomas.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was with Ernest yesterday, and I had the opportunity to interview him very early on with his book From Raj to Riches. And his story is absolutely phenomenal. He's a great friend of mine.
That's a
And
Pam
so
Broussard connection.
yes, 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 yes. So Ernest is he's a great, great, great guy.
Love
We
him.
were at
Love
the
him.
premiere. We did a movie premiere under the freeway.
I saw that on your Instagram.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. But yes, back to the question at hand. I'm grateful that God gave me my children to ground me because their future
Hmm.
was important to me. You know, how they developed, matured,
Hmm.
how they responded to life, for them to have a solid foundation, even if it was just me, was
Hmm.
very, very important to me. And God, I tell you, He provided for us. And that is who they look to now, Otis. They look to God for answers because they've seen Him in my life. You know, they've seen
That's
what
great.
He
That's
can
great.
done, what he has done and what he can do. I remember when we used to pull up in McDonald's
Uh-huh.
and I was paycheck to paycheck and single parenting, and it was like, okay, what y'all want? And my son would say, I want a number 3. I'm like, you want a whole number? It's like, times were tough, man. I needed him to want a fraction, just the sandwich. It's like, you want a whole number?
You want a whole meal? Yeah, like, boy, listen, I tell you what, we're gonna get this Big Mac and we gonna slice this.
We gonna call it a day.
You gonna eat half of this Big Mac. I'm gonna eat the other half. We're gonna share these fries. And that's how we
We
gonna
gonna roll
roll.
like that.
And
Yes.
we're gonna drink that Kool-Aid at home. That's what we
Right. Right. But we look back at those times and we just thank God and we laugh and we recognize the fact that He has been with us. Truly, truly, truly. Never left us, never forsook us, but been with us as a provider and everything we've needed.
But hey, the good part is, see, now he can get a whole meal. Now he
You can
can
get a
get.
filet mignon right now.
Oh, well, wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. I need to get out there then. If we doing that, I need to get out there. I have 2 more questions for you.
Yes, yes.
Going back to relationships, do
Okay.
you feel, and this is something I always tell any woman that'll listen, really, do you feel women need to ask more questions when they're in a relationship? And where I'm coming from with that, I always tell my daughters, you always ask, okay, what are you here for? All right, and come back, ask them again. What are you here for? What do you want? Why you want me? And because I always tell them is that when someone is trying to scam, trying to play you, or want that one thing that men have always wanted in the since Eve was formed, is that when a person is lying to you, the more you ask questions, the more they get frustrated.
Yes, yes, yes. Otis, I think that's so important. It is so important. And it was something that I failed to do. I was so enamored with somebody being enamored with me that
Hmm.
I didn't ask questions, that I was so uncertain of who I was and what
Hmm.
I wanted, what I needed, that I didn't have any questions. I had one gentleman to say, you're not going to find anybody who loved you like I love you. So I was like, okay, I better go for this man because there's nobody else is going to love me
No,
like this.
that's a player line. That's a player
Oh
line.
my
That's a player.
gosh, I didn't know it. But yes, 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 it is of utmost importance to ask as many questions, to continue to ask questions. I mean, that's what dating should be all about. It should be questions. Do you want children? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Why do I interest you? What is it about me that interests you? Do you want children? Just
Mm.
everything, everything. How do you respond when you're angry? What's the biggest thing that frustrates you? What is it that makes you happy? What colors do you like? What do you like to eat? Do you like to travel? I mean, that's what dating should be all about. It should be sitting across the table, exchanging. That's getting to know each
Right,
other
right.
through conversation. It's like, don't let me get to know you because I've run up on a situation. Let me get to know you. Do you believe in multiple relationships, or do you believe in having one relationship?
Yeah, you
And then
got to
that
ask
way
that today. Yeah,
you
you got to
got
ask that.
you need
Yeah.
to know. Do you like the opposite, the same sex? You got to know
No,
all the questions.
you're right. I lied. I said two more questions. No, I got two more questions. No, because I think when you just said that, when I just asked that question, it led me to a question that I did have down that I think you could speak to, because you kind of mentioned it a little bit as far as your past and how you was raised.
Mhm.
How important is it for a father to be there for his daughter when she's dating at any age?
It is of utmost importance because that man knows that there is a dad, there is a man, there is a male figure who has her back, and I can't treat her any kind of way because I'm going to have to answer to him. Then there is a need for her to know that I need somebody who looks like my dad, who acts like my dad, who treats me with respect like my dad. I need a reflection of my dad. So it is of utmost importance that a man is there for his daughter at every stage. I think that daddy's girl is is really, really important. And I believe, Otis, in my journey, I missed it. I missed it not having a father or not having a father figure. And
Right.
I believe it's what I have looked for in a relationship. I've looked for that nurturing father figure because I didn't have one. And then I didn't have anyone to look back at and to resemble, or anybody to make sure, look over my shoulder to make
Right.
sure the relationships that I had were healthy, or to give me advice on how does a man think? What is he thinking right now? What do you see in him, dad, being a man yourself? So I think it is critical. It's absolutely critical.
I asked that question because I remembered when my daughters were smaller,
Mhm.
and the neighborhood I was living in, I'll never forget this. And my wife didn't pay attention to it, but so let me tell you this story. So I walk outside,
Mhm.
step out the front door, and I see both of my daughters surrounded by 6 or 7 guys. So the first thing came in my mind was like, oh hell no. I was like, hey, come here, come here, come here, come here. So they came on, what? And they were just talking, nothing, just, I said, no, you don't, yeah, daddy, ain't nothing wrong with that. So they go in the house and they trying to explain the situation to my wife. And my wife was like, well, I had male friends. And I said, see, y'all don't see what I see. And,
Mhm.
and so it took another neighbor who my girls were friend with, it took their father to explain to my wife. I said, hey man, if you stepped outside and you saw your daughters out there and there's 6 or 7 guys and there's two of them, he said, oh hell no. He said the exact same. And he had to explain to my wife, he said, see, we see something totally different.
Yes.
We see our vision of that is just totally different. And it took me to understand that God has said, see, that's why I created male and female. That's
Yes.
why daddy and mother have to be married together, because I need half of this, half of that. God said, I'm a balanced God. You got a left, you got a right, you got a front, you got a back, you got up and down. So if you're just the father, you might be too strict. If you're just a mother, sometimes you could be too nurturing. And
Right.
so
Right.
learn, and people do the best they can given their situations. I'm just saying
Yes.
that in that moment, it struck me that I tell you, Jen, I have no excuses because I seen my father do it. Then I
Mhm.
seen my
Mhm.
uncles do it. And now
Mhm.
I'm a grandfather of 5. And I can't not be a good grandfather because my uncle, who passed recently last year, I watch him and my aunt as grandparents raise one of their grandchildren, bought two cars for the other two. And I told her, I said, man, you too much pressure now. Ease
Yeah,
up. I
yeah,
said, ease up,
yeah.
player, ease up, and so I've had great examples.
Wonderful.
So I dare me to fail because I had too many teachers in front of me to show me what to do, even if I didn't know what to do instinctually at first. I've just had, so I wanted to make sure I got that question across to you to answer. So my last question for you is, when did you realize that God was with you while you were going through? What was the moment you realized to say, I'm gonna be all right because he got me?
Yes. So it was that incident that I alluded to with
Hmm.
the federal drug enforcement
Okay.
agents
Okay.
knocking at my door.
Okay.
Otis, my journey began in the book. It's a little out of order, but because I told one story last, the relationship that I
Sure.
alluded to. But
Hmm.
I married a drug dealer. I married a drug dealer. And yes, I used drugs too. And I was so tied up in this world that I found myself in, being a Southern girl coming to California and getting all tied up with the wrong people.
Hmm.
Um, and when I realized it, I needed God to get me out of it. I needed God to get me out. I ran to church. I went to church. I even went to church volunteering my time just to be away from that situation. I volunteered at the church. And then, after volunteering more faithful than the workers volunteered, I was asked to take a position. It's like, we don't have anything right now. We know you're interested in theater and communications. We don't have
Hmm.
anything in that area. Will you come and do this job? Will you come and be a receptionist
Hmm.
until something opens up in that area? And my thought, in retrospect, I didn't know it then, was I'd rather be a doorkeeper in my father's house than to dwell in the tents of the wicked. So yes, I got a BA degree, but I will be a receptionist at the church gladly, gladly, gladly. So Otis, when I opened up, I was working, it was fine, it was good. Nobody knew what was going on. I was very
Right.
functional. But I was married to a drug dealer. So when I garnered a relationship with the people I worked with, I said, hey, pray for me. This is what's going on in my life. Pray for me.
Hmm.
This is what's going on. So Otis, when I got back to the pastor, sadly enough, I was called in and we were just about to have a church picnic. It was going to be a great day. I was looking forward to it, but I was called in to his office and I was asked to resign. I was asked to resign because I was a bad reflection on the church. And then my belongings from my desk were left on my steps. It was the most crushing experience that I have had because I thought I could run there, I could go there, I could find solace there, I could find refuge there. And I didn't. I didn't. I found a crushing instead. So when God showed up, going on about life, and
Hmm.
I talked about all of that in the book and how that journey was. I mean, it was almost to the point of suicide, because it's like, if I can't go to church, if I can't take my hurt, my pain, my trouble, my drama, my situation to church, I'm done. I'm done. So that is when I got myself involved in this play. I heard about this girl doing a play, so I was going to rehearsal, and one of the songs that was given to me to sing was Change. It was
Okay.
Tremaine Hawkins' Change is gonna. So I'm
Yes.
rehearsing the song. And then there's this rattling on the door, and it was the federal drug enforcement agent with guns drawn at my head, with just a real movie scene, right? A real
Gotcha.
scene from a movie.
Okay.
And they searched everything, just tore up everything, and nothing was there. And every time they would, pull out something of mine, scripture was falling out of everywhere, out of the glove compartment, out of the drawer. I was just like
Okay.
really praying and trying. It's like, Lord help me, get me out of this. And it was when he said, um, that we've been watching you, and we're your guardian angels. And so when the police officers came in and arrested my then husband,
Right.
then God released the shackles from me, and
Every
I was
chain was
free.
broken. Every chain
I,
was broken.
a change had come, the chain was broken, and I knew then that God was with me, that He was with me. I mean, I could even open the window in the house and I could hear uh, Dr. Frederick K. Price on the radio from the
Yeah.
neighbors. And it was like God was talking to me. It's like, I see you, come out of there. He was just talking to me and tracking me down. And I'm like, I know in my knower, I know for a fact that God loves me. It's like, I don't care what anybody else thinks. I know my
Okay.
daddy loves me.
Okay.
Okay.
Y'all too late
So
now. I didn't try it.
it,
Nah, y'all done messed up now.
listen, you can't make me doubt it because I know way too much about it. And that's just one story. And I've got a whole
But
book of them
listen,
in the Grace to Walk
the
Away. And I hope you get it.
the beautiful part about that, what you were just saying, is that, see, even though you weren't supposed to be at the church in a sense of a member of the church, God saw you chasing him. See, we can
Mhm.
chase him and be seeking him be in the wrong spot, but he's so awesome. He's like, don't worry about it. I'm gonna shift it anyway. Just keep coming. Just keep coming.
Mhm.
I'm gonna shift it anyway. So don't worry about it. And so as you were going there, looking for the church, quote unquote, the building, the place. And I always tell people is that don't don't look for the church folk, look for the saints. See,
Yeah.
because that trust me. Said, listen, I helped start a church. Let me tell you something. No, I'm talking about from day one. I ain't talking about we joined it. I'm talking about there were no members
Yes.
to
Yes.
members, and so excuse me. So my point is that sometimes, like we stated earlier, you go through things because God is taking Janette through all this stuff and throwing all this weight on you, and you trying to get it off. You trying to get the weight out. You trying to get all this stuff off of you. And he's
Mhm.
like, nah, I need you to carry this weight for a moment because I'm building your muscles. I'm building
Mhm.
your muscles. I'm building
Mhm.
your discernment. I'm building your
Mhm.
eyesight. So once I bring you out of it, right? He's
Yes.
like, now go get them.
Now
Now go
go
get,
back in and get them.
yeah, now
Go
go
back
get
and
them.
get them.
But you can't go get nobody if you ain't went through nothing.
Well,
And
come on now.
so he had you to go through all that to
Yes.
build you, to have you strong. And I guarantee you now, especially after you done put it in your book, you done interviews like this, I guarantee you now, some men don't even know how to approach you now. Eh,
No, maybe
eh,
not.
they don't know
Maybe
how.
not.
I was gonna holler at her, but somebody done told about the book, or but that's okay because that keeps all the the
Riff
foolish stuff.
raff.
Yeah,
The riff raff.
you gotta keep. Hey, gotta do bad by yourself. If I'm gonna do bad now, I'm gonna do it by myself now.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I appreciate you coming on the show, blessing me with your presence. Like I said, if you check your calendar, I would love to have you back on May the 16th
Okay.
at 4
Okay.
p.m. your time, because I know that's you're Pacific. I'm Eastern time, and so we would love to have you back to bless us with your presence.